A very warm welcome to Alice Sheridan, who is joining me on a very sunny day. You're obviously very warm because you've got your shorts on.
I have got shorts on. I have. I'm determined to enjoy every drop of warm weather and sunshiny patch in the garden when it arrives, even if it's just for little 10-minute moments during the day. Yeah, it makes me happy. So I try and love it while it's here.
Well, we've got easterly winds down in Cornwall at the moment, so it's not such good. Anyway, I have to say, as I said to you before I pressed record, very delighted because you are, drumroll, podcast royalty. As well as being an artist and a mentor, you, along with fellow artist Louise Fletcher, were the podcast hosts of Art Juice, which ran for ages and was, the go-to art podcast.
Yeah, 5 years, started on a whim. We were just chatting about setup, like we literally didn't have any. We recorded them on our iPhone at that point, wired in microphones, our little earbud things. That's how we started. So, yeah, podcast world has gone crazy. And although I miss having the conversations on a regular basis, I don't miss having to do it on a regular basis. So it's lovely to be here chatting with you and having conversations again and feeling like I'm not in the driving seat.
It must be quite strange when you've been the host. When you get interviewed by other people now, do you go, I wouldn't have done it that way?
Not at all.
Good. That was the right answer. But I've got to ask, so as well as doing the podcast, obviously you're primarily an artist, but you've also got your membership. And was the podcast just one thing too many? Was that why you decided to bring it to an end, or did it just feel
Um,
like it run its course?
hmm. I don't think that was the reason why, because for, many years like Louise had her business, I had my business and my membership. We were both doing our art and the podcast. So there was absolutely time for all of it. I think it just got to a stage where we felt we were trying to dig around for conversation topics. When you've spoken to somebody for 250 hours plus, like you pretty much can predict what the other person is going to say. You know where they're coming from. And I think for me anyway, it just felt like sometimes we were looking to try to find new angles on things that we didn't need to because it had been done. And she and I are quite different. She liked the regularity of it. I quite like to break out from regularity. And although we managed that very well for our time and we got to know each other well, having not known each other at all when we started, I think for me, I was just feeling like I just want to see what life is like without this. I
Yeah.
do miss it though sometimes.
I have to say, I'm surprised myself about how much I've loved doing it because I
Yeah.
thought I would do eight, and then you get, and I enjoy every aspect of it, the chatting and the editing and
Yeah.
all of it, really.
Yeah. I mean, on a weekly basis, I have conversations with people and I think to myself, this should be recorded. This would be great on a podcast. And then I think about the editing and the starting, and I just think, not now, Alice, not now. But maybe sometime.
But how do you, because you've got your art practice, you've got your membership,
Yeah.
are you a very organized person? Do you think, right, this
Huh.
is X day, I do this, and I do you have segments of
Oh,
time?
wow. Okay, this is such a huge question, and I know it is a battle for so many people. So I'm going to admit up front that I am on the everybody is in it, and if they don't think they are, they think they are. And if you think you are, you probably do, because if you don't have it and you're thinking about it, you wouldn't be thinking about it if you didn't have it. So I'm on the official ADHD bandwagon. And what was so fascinating about that when the diagnosis came in was it started after my daughter coming back from school with particular comments and issues, comments from friends and teachers and things that she was dealing with. And we started investigating it for her. And pretty much everything that came up, I was like, okay. And she didn't at that point, she didn't want, she's like, no, I've got enough on my plate. I don't want to do anything. And I thought, right, well, I've got the time. I will apply and I will be assessed. And it's a pretty lengthy process. And you have to do quite a lot of preparation work and thinking back. And What was fascinating was how much of my life since I was 18, like literally everything. So I started as a graphic designer, very quickly went freelance because I couldn't be contained in one place. And I think alongside that, and I'm sure we'll talk about like how all of these different threads fed in, like there were some things that I had to be organized about. I had my children quite young. There is a structure with school. I had to be quite organized. So there definitely was a time in life where I was quite organized. And I think I learned to do that pretty well because I'm fairly conscientious and I develop things that work for me and I'm happy to share them. Not sure if we'll get into human design as well, but that's part of my human design is exploring things, learning what works, and just sharing it. Just like this is what I do, have at it if it's helpful for you. And so much of what's in the membership is what I've had to learn for myself, which when I started it back in 2018, so much of that didn't exist. But looking back at it through the ADHD lens, including all my little tricks and tools and how I get things to work and stay fun when actually they're really sometimes quite boring sides of running a business, being organized has absolutely been part of it. And there are also very many times where it goes completely off the rails. I rebel against my own structures all the time. And in the last few years, that's got more chaotic, I think, as the children's structure has fallen out of it, and there's been more chaos coming in from a parent care point of view. And that's part of what's kind of upset the apple cart a bit. So there's a very long answer to your question. It's going
Well,
to
I
be a long
think,
podcast, Elaine.
yeah, well, there could be a whole new strand. I think a lot of people feel that too, that there is that pull when you've got a structure, whatever it
Yeah,
is, and in your case, of having your children, but then some indeterminable comes in.
yeah,
And, I know I'm feeling it with aged relatives in Scotland who ugh, that's going to be something that you can't
tricky.
predict it. And I find that's quite disarming. I like to know, I mean, I don't think I'm ADHD, but I like to know what I'm doing when I'm doing things.
Yeah.
And when you've got something that's unpredictable, that can make life a bit more chaotic.
I mean, I think it's a very personal relationship we all have with how we manage our time. And I think a lot about structure is that moment where you make a decision where something is important and what do you need to support you in order to get it done. And I think that's quite an important moment because I was a designer. I came back to painting as a kind of as a very personal thing. And then I was looking at, do I go back to work? Am I going to go back into an office and do marketing materials for somebody else? Didn't feel very appealing. Um, and I had a life career coach at the time, and she said, well, what would you like to do? And I said, see where this art thing goes. And she said, well, how long can we give it? And I said, well, I don't know, like 6 months. And I know that that was a very lucky position to be in. Um, but my husband's a bit older than me. And we also had this story that, I wanted to stay at home with the children. He was working. And then he said, and when I retire, you can you can have your career. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what that's going to look like because it's not going to look like going back into a design office. But I could see that there was longevity in an art career. But that moment when that coach said, what should we, and I was like, right, okay, that was a moment decision where I thought, right, if I'm really committing to myself and taking it seriously, this is not just about flitting around and buying paint and making things on an ad hoc basis. This is looking at what do I need to create, understanding pricing, where am I going to show it, how am I going to sell it when I don't know anybody, so putting some structure around that almost in small project forms, I think was very helpful as a moment and an ongoing practice.
You see, that's really interesting because a lot of the creatives I talk to, particularly women coming back to or pursuing a creative career,
Yeah,
don't see it as this is going to be a business. They see it
no,
as and I can't remember, I think I've recorded it or written it as an Instagram. It's the kind of the dipping the toe in rather
yeah,
than jumping in, whereas you very obviously thought, right, this is a business. If I've got this 6 month period to do this, it's got to have an outcome, and it's got to have, if it's going to go beyond that, it's got to have fulfilled the goals that I'm setting for it.
Yeah, and I think we all get, we're either in a situation where we have to make it a business, and I think that does bring, if that's there right from the start, I think that can bring an element of pressure, which is not always helpful. Um, but I think we all get to choose like where we sit on that continuum. Like for the first year, where after I decided my aim was to make enough to take the family on a family holiday. That was my goal. That is not the same thing as running a whole household. And then I had a level which was like, when I matched my previous full-time income from my job, I was like, okay, now this, I can really properly say this is proper. So that was a moment too.
So, what were you thinking of yourself before then? Were you saying, I'm an artist and this is my business? Or were you just saying, I'm trying to be an
That's a good
artist?
question. I think I'm an artist and this is my bit. I think I'd made that commitment to it. Um, but I think that moment was when I really thought, okay, I've got enough things that are actually working together now. So I had a print range at the time. I was doing regular exhibitions. I understood my working practice, how quickly I could work. I knew my pricing. I understood the relationship between larger paintings and smaller paintings. I mean, that was a moment as well when I was doing, as many people do when they start, much smaller pieces of work. And I just almost like sat down one day and I just thought, this is never, this is just never going to create what I want in terms of financial income from this. Unless I mean, even if I started churning them out, which is not my practice of working, I have to get bigger. I have to get comfortable with getting bigger. And that's a business decision, but it's also it's quite a scary creative decision when you do that for the first time. It's not going to be easy making that jump, but that's kind of like understanding what your choice is with regards to the risks you're prepared to take, the energy you're prepared to put into something, not give up at the first hurdle for something that you want at the other end of it. And I do think you have to have some clarity of thinking on that, which is not to say that everybody has to, of course.
Well, I think there's a lot who don't, and I think there's a lot of people who almost are nervous of doing that
Sure.
because it feels like, oh, that's me calling myself, it's that imposter syndrome. That's me calling
Yeah.
myself this when I'm not. So what how did you figure all this out? So you take the decision, you're not going to go back to graphic design, you're
Yeah.
going to do this, you've got the 6 month period. How did you figure it all out about how you were going to promote your work, how you were going to sell your work, how you were going to create your work?
Hmm. I mean, this is a while ago, so I think things were different in social media terms. Mind you, I wasn't on Instagram initially. I only started Instagram because my phone kept running out of storage for photographs. So, and I thought, oh, there's this thing called Instagram, I can put photos on there. Um, I think the first thing would be, and it is the first step within the membership, is understanding what your week looks like and what your time looks like, because that's essentially what we're all working with. So for me, that was making a decision about using that time sensibly while the children were at school way back then. I gave up learning to play the piano. I'd started when I was playing with my daughter. She'd given it up. I'd carried on doing it. I really enjoyed learning as an adult. I was really enjoying it. But I also had a moment where I came back and I did 2 hours piano practice as procrastination against getting into the studio, because piano practice is written by somebody else. It's written on that music. You know what you've got to be doing for it. Whereas when you come into the studio, you've got to set your own goals. You have to do it yourself. So that's harder. And this is the thing, is anything that you set out to do for yourself, there's always going to be a period where you don't know what you're doing. You really don't have a clear plan, even if you think you've made one. And it's going to go off track. You're going to get things wrong. And sometimes you're going to get things wrong publicly. And if you say you're an artist and you have a show and paintings don't sell, flip a neck. What does that mean? Is it embarrassing? Do you feel shame? Does it mean that you don't paint again? Are you going to take it personally? Like, you have to figure out all of those kind of things too. And so I think I've always investigated and invested in support, I would say, in that side, like what's it called now? Mindset. But that side of it, because I recognize very early on that if you're on your own in that, it's quite easy to get knocked off when things don't go as well. When you have a week that doesn't go great, when you get rejected from shows, so having other people around me, finding other people to talk to who were in it with me was a massively important part.
No, I think that's very much part of it because, particularly if you have done in your previous life, you've worked in an office, you've had that water cooler moment throughout the day, you've had that support, the bouncing of ideas, and then, as you say, you're setting your own goals. You don't have someone
Mm-hmm.
saying this is your project. You need that
Yeah.
support. And do you think that really was sort of the direct reason for doing the membership, that you thought I can share this, what
Yeah,
I've
I
gone
think so. I
through?
mean, it started slow. I mean, it started for me with applying for open studios, visiting open studios, thinking I'd love to do this, wondering how you got in, not being sure, applying and getting in and thinking, wow, that's brilliant. They think I'm good enough. And then I realized that they let anybody in. So, but I didn't know that, thankfully, at the time. But I kind of thought I did a kind of, so we show at our homes, and I'd sort of been to see other people's and moved around my space and thought, I need 20 paintings to fill all the spaces here. That's my first project. That's my deadline. 20 pieces of work. And that took me 2 years to do.
2 years. So we've gone
Yep.
beyond the 6 month agreed little
Yes.
period. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So,
So sorry, at the end of the 6 months, had you sold anything by that point?
oh, let me think. Where do these two things tally? I did my first open studio in 2009, and I saw that life coach. I started seeing her when I was 41, which would have been 2011. So I had done open studios first, but I think I was in that process of not feeling like it was going to go anywhere.
And in terms of your practice, has
Yeah.
your work evolved, or were you painting from the outset the way you're painting now?
Oh, definitely changed. I think I started off much more landscape based because, basically we've got abstracts. You've got to have something to say. I wasn't sure I had anything to say. Um, Portraits. No, I don't want to have anything to do with other people. I have people and children in my life. That's enough. Domestic still life. No, thank you very much. Right. So la la landscape. And I think that kind of connection with us and the space around us, how we live in it, how we feel. And I think I have this idea about how your art often reflects something else that you're looking for, not just you as you are, but something that you're looking for. So, right back then, we traveled to Dartmoor a lot, and that wild open space, that sense of freedom, when you put that against domestic life in busy London, that's that was exciting. To create that within a painting, that was exciting. So I think that's where it started. And then I think it's just as you get to know your materials, as you get braver, you experiment more, you want to go bigger, you start to refine your ideas a little bit. And it's just always a relationship with the materials, with what you're working on. But still, sometimes, very often, things just come up very landscapey, or and I don't try to tie it down too much now. Just let it be what it wants to be. I don't restrict myself on colors. Sometimes I go through phases, but I don't do that.
So after your open studios, let's go back to that
Yeah.
one. You had 20 paintings.
Yeah.
How well did you sell?
I can't remember exactly that year, but I know that. So we're going back, people gave you a written check back then.
Mm.
And I remember, so
Imagine.
like people I didn't know bought paintings, which was like thrilling and unbelievable in the first place. And I remember going into Nationwide with a little stack of checks the Monday after it finished, and they kind of added up. And the lady was like, "Oh, that's nice. What have you been doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm an artist." And she was like, "Oh, very good." And all of those little tiny moments of kind of like, "Oh, well, look, see where this could go." That was fun. And then you're like, okay, I've got to do it again next year. And then it was art fairs. And, those have always worked really well for me because I've had moments in the diary that I'm working towards, gives me a deadline for creating a body of work. And I like meeting people who buy my work.
And what about
Kind of things.
galleries? How have they figured in your
I have had
practice?
galleries ask me for work, and I have sent work to galleries. I've never had a relationship closely with a gallery that I've worked with consistently. I think in the early days, I just didn't feel ready. And I also was worried about feeling like they would expect me to carry on producing work in the same vein. They would say, "Thank you very much, that sold. Can I have six more of those?" And that is never how I have wanted to work. So I've been hesitant about it. I mean, I've had a solo show, work sold, but with my business head on, if I'm selling all the work that I make within an eventual time period, why would I give half of it to somebody else?
That is a very valid point. And I speak to a lot of artists and makers with mentoring in my course and things, and a lot of them, particularly women who are doing what you did and
Yeah,
coming at it as a second career. I think it's partly endorsement because
yeah,
you feel like an artist if you're with a gallery, but
yeah,
also it takes away that having to do the look at me and my work. It's you're letting
yeah.
someone do the heavy lifting for you. But
It absolutely does. And that is brilliant. And I think at the time that I started doing it, I really enjoyed doing all of those kind of things. It felt more direct, and I really liked that. Um, I think possibly now, having been around for a while, I would be more happy to step back, create quite quietly. Maybe that just suits the time of life that I'm in. Create more quietly and let somebody else handle more of that. I absolutely think galleries and good relationships with gallery earn every penny of that agreement between them and an artist. But galleries can be on every level, artists can be on every level. Some galleries are great, some maybe not so much. I haven't had any particularly bad experiences, but it also hasn't been something that I've particularly sought out. But I think if
no,
you
and
get that relationship right, it's very special.
well, I think it is, but I also think you've achieved what you've achieved in sort of quite a modern, sounds very old fashioned thing to say, but quite a
Yeah,
modern way in that
yeah.
you've embraced all the social media and building up your
Hmm.
brand. And perhaps because of your podcast as well, that's
Hmm.
put you on a different kind of level in that people are interested in you as a person, as you as in the Alice Sheridan brand. Do you think the podcast actually helped sell art, or do you think it just helped build the knowing of you?
Hmm. I think in some situations it probably has. But I would also say that that's maybe one of the reasons why I've quite enjoyed doing art fairs, because when you go to an art fair, most of the people walking around have no idea who you are. They don't go and Google your website. I mean, maybe they might do, and they'll look at your website and say, okay, she's legit. They haven't listened to the podcast. They're buying a painting because they see it and they like it. And I think that sort of for me also legitimizes, right, my work is appealing to people. They're not buying it because of the podcast, because they're relying on that. And that also feels quite nice.
Yeah, and the same with galleries because
Yeah,
just what I said about endorsement, they're not buying you because they're going, oh, that's in X gallery, therefore it must be okay. They're
no,
literally going with their instinct, which is
yeah.
what when we're buying art, we all fundamentally do.
Yeah. And I think that's it's a lovely thing to see that. To watch somebody in real time see your art for the first time and fall in love with it and have that internal discussion about which one they're going to buy and just knowing that they can't leave it behind. That's such a joy.
Yeah.
I love that part of it. When I had a gallery show at Sanctuary Gallery, I know that you've spoken. That was a lovely episode. It was beautiful, and she did a fabulous job hanging everything. And there were paintings you sold to people, and I don't know who they were. And there was a little bit of me that was a bit sad about that.
Yeah. And I get that. And it is a joy as a gallerist. The two chores that you never complain about doing as a gallerist is wrapping up work to go to a new
Yeah,
home or putting a red sticker on something. It's brilliant. But at the same time, it's all I'm doing is telling the artist, oh, this sold to, and they're lovely and
yeah,
they bought before or they came across you the first time. So yeah, I get that. It is sort of that once removed.
yeah.
Um, and within your membership, do you encourage your members, the fellow artists, to work with galleries or to plough their own furrow?
Either they get to choose. I mean, I think the whole premise of the membership is that, there is a big wide world out there, and there is your relationship with your art, and there is how you want to go about selling it. If you do, for some people it's not about selling, it's about sharing the story. And I'm also a big believer in social media is a great place, and your website is a great place to just be part of your creative story. I think the podcast rather took over, but way back I was writing blogs. Because it's part of that taking an idea, making it concrete, making a commitment to it, sharing it. It's part of the creative process, it's part of the thinking process. And I think social media is fabulous for that. Nothing's in print, even the what's the word, the kind of disposability of social media. Don't worry too much about it. Share something, write about it, see what people click with. Tomorrow you get to do it all again. So we have members who are very serious, business minded. We have some who work with lots of galleries, we have some who sell more independently, and we have some who aren't interested in selling at all, which
That's
makes it quite
interesting.
a broad and slightly weird membership, but it's also quite fun as a result.
And so you do it. Do you have this? You do it throughout the year, or you can join at certain points throughout the year. Do you have a limited number of people who do it, and are they all visual artists, or how is there a selection process?
It's mainly visual. We do have photographers, some ceramicists, quite a few textiles. Not sure about jewelers. Some who do sculpture, often alongside visual art as well. So, but probably mainly painters, I think. Um, and yes, so far it has been open at maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And I definitely had a couple of years where I did big launches. Life has thrown enough curveballs so that hasn't happened recently. And I think people have mellowed and also become um, overstimulated and wise to some of the hype around some of the selling of that kind of thing. There is a place to it, because I think often when we're choosing to do something that feels a bit risky and we're not quite sure, we do want some encouragement. And when we're starting something and committing something, it's nice to feel like, oh, we're all in it together, we're all making a start together. And like we have new members calls where I get to meet everybody. And I love doing that. Whereas I couldn't do that every week. But I'm feeling more now that, and I've always felt like when you said, how do you encourage people? I don't encourage people. I feel like my role is to share what I've done, bring other people in who've done things differently. So people have a holistic view and they get to choose. My role is giving people enough knowledge to feel confident to make a start and know that they can't really get it wrong. If you get it wrong, you just go on from there. That's your decision. And So I'm feeling more that I might just do a like this is open and it's up to you as a grown adult when you want to come in and join. And I know that means the numbers won't be as big. And quite frankly, I'm fine with that.
I think you're right about the launch thing because there's been, and I don't know about you, but I just do sometimes look at social media and go, oh, dear God, it's
Hmm.
overwhelming with people telling you, do this and you will
Yeah.
get this and do that. And
Yeah.
don't teach and don't preach and oh God. But when
Yeah.
I did my course for working specifically for artists and makers working with galleries, you did the big launch.
Yeah.
And I've done the same thing. I've gone evergreen and just join when you want.
Yeah.
And, committed to 2 live Zooms a year, join when you want.
Hmm.
But I'm actually thinking of redoing that because I think it's not just about galleries. Okay, my expertise is what galleries are looking for, but actually that's evolved in itself. And
Right.
I think there is more to being an artist or maker than just being with galleries. And your example is a good one.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through another launch process again.
Right. Well, I did. I mean, the first time, I mean, I started with a very small group, and then the next time I opened up, I did limit places and I sold out within like about 7 minutes. And I was in a taxi picking up a
You're
piece
like
of,
the Rolling Stones of
well,
the O2.
well, I was just, at that point, I was really worried about my capacity to have lots of people in there and feel like I had to look after them all. And I was in a taxi picking up a piece of work for an exhibition, and I was trying to log into a website to like hide the page and stuff. And then people got cross. And after that, we didn't limit it. And also, for the last couple of years, it's reduced down in number size. And I like that too. And it's still at a place where I think, wow, if you told me 5 years ago this is where I'd be very happy with it. So I think with anything that you do, whether it's an art career or a business decision, you either do something for a season and then review it and decide if you're going to continue or stop it, or if it's something that's ongoing, like an art career, like a membership, because it's going to need continuity and recommitment and evolution and change, you have to let it change and morph with you. And that's the joy about doing it on your own. You get to go, do you know what? I feel like we're all feeling a bit stressed this month. So we're just going to chill the hell down and we're going to have a little focus on this instead. And everyone goes, oh, how did you know that's what we were thinking?
But you see, that's interesting because that strikes me as you've got a very kind of entrepreneurial bit of your brain that you are thinking, you're not just stagnating, you're thinking this is the next thing. And two parts of the question: do you think you recognize that in yourself early on when you were starting, and do you think that you really need to have that to be a successful artist?
To be a successful artist, let me get to that one first. I think to be a successful artist, you absolutely need to be committed to your awareness of the world and your practice. You need knowledge for that. You need information for that. You need to be able to apply that. I mean, there's a lot of talk like intuitive art. Okay, fine. You can be intuitive in your practice, but you also need to have the knowledge and the information so that your intuition leads you into a direction that is successful and resolved, and a painting feels complete, and you know what you're doing when you turn up in the studio. So I think this point about awareness about the decisions that you make along the way is very, very, it's really important to me. And I think that there are probably some artists who do feel that it is just like, well, I can just do whatever do whatever I feel like doing. Um, and the reality is there are things that you have to be clear about, you have to sort out if you want to get where you want to go. And that's the business side of it. And I like that. I like the fact, to me, they are both challenges. They are both challenges where you get to decide the parameters, you get to decide the limitations, you get to decide what your skills are, what you want to investigate, what feels fun. And this is where the do what you feel like, I think, really follows. It's not just about intuition, it's about knowing when something feels good or feels off. And If it feels off, don't do it. But do commit to doing something that feels good and be prepared to swivel and change and know why you're doing it so that you can stand by your decisions. It's like pricing. There is no one way to price, but when you decide on pricing for your painting, know what's going into that decision. There's no apology. There's no worrying about, is it too high? This is the price. Know what you want and stand by it. And I think I personally believe that the entrepreneurial side can be very rewarding for artists because it is a slightly different part of your brain. But I think you probably have to be a bit mad to do both. And I think lots of us probably are just a little bit crazy in terms of like, this is not a straightforward job. If we wanted a straightforward job, I can go and get one. Well, I couldn't go and get one because I wouldn't like last 2 minutes. But, people do. And there is a reason why we are the way we are. And I think you can take that creative approach into how you run a business as an entrepreneur, which doesn't mean to say that you have to do all the big bro marketing and the click funnels and the leads and the ads and that and the AI, put your AI things into a chat sheet and Canva will make it. Oh, fuck off. I mean, sorry, beep that out, but fuck off.
One thing that I just wanted to ask you there about you talking about you going get another job. You obviously worked as a graphic designer. Was there a point in your early life where you actually thought, I would like to be an artist? Or did you think that this was just something that came later? It was not
No, I
a
think
consideration.
I wanted to be a graphic designer, and I found the other day a magazine that I'd drawn when I was 11. It was called Thumbs Up. Me and Margaret Rickford did it, and we drew it out and we sold it. Like, so that little kind of create. I've always liked creating a thing, like making a thing. But the idea of going to art school never really appealed. So it was graphic design. And I loved print design. I did print design. We did sort of exhibitions, and I was there when web design. I mean, early days of web design. Wow, that was a thing. Um, but when it started all to go online, I kind of, I, that just coincided, made it a sort of an easy step back because you didn't end up with that lovely tangible smell of something coming back from the printers. There was a beautiful thing that you'd made and you'd done the photo shoot on. So I think going back to something that really kind of has a physical energy to it, that was very appealing. Coming back to
And
art.
we met earlier this year at a very
Mm,
interesting workshop about
mm,
writing a business book.
mm, mm.
Is that something that you would still consider doing?
I don't think for me it was ever about a business book. I think it was that workshop was about a kind of non-fiction book, wasn't it, really?
Yes.
Um, and I think that those sort of spaces are always very helpful to explore an idea, to see maybe where you've got a blind spot or where you're living in fantasy land. Um, I mean, I've come away very clearly like, I do not want to be writing a business book. I do not want to do this is how you build your business as an artist. That's not the format for me. I think I'd rather stick pins in my eyes. Um, but some point, a book that is about accessing creative exploration, finding boldness to follow ideas, which, and like I say, I think for a while the business and the art has all fed into each other. And now there is more about life experiences that are feeding into that for me. And there is a lot that goes on outside and to a degree within the membership about really understanding how you make decisions on things. A book about that, maybe something juicy and gorgeous to hold that's a bit reflective, maybe some prompts, but it's still very amorphous. It absolutely hasn't landed yet. So never say never, but no, I'm not working on anything right now for that.
It just feels like one of those things you add to your list when you go, yes, I really don't have enough things to do in the day.
Yeah, yeah, no, I have plenty of things to be doing in the day right now.
And have you, or do you look at any other entrepreneurs and think, I really like how they have built their business, how they have been, as you put it, a little bit crazy, perhaps?
I have met some incredible businesswomen along the way. And I've met women who are very brave and starting things. And I really appreciate that when I see somebody trying to do something. The thing that I really admire is the way that, um, thinking about whether to say this, but I do think it is women in particular are very good about reaching out to each other and supporting each other and hearing each other. And I've had situations where I've done that for other business friends and vice versa. We step in for each other. And sometimes those relationships can span quite a lot of years. And then maybe you end up working on something together and it feels really good. I would hesitate to pick one or two, but I think our sense of when we meet somebody and making sure that you are putting yourself in positions outside of your comfort zone where you meet people. I mean, this June I'm going to Atomicon. I don't even know what Atomicon is about. I don't. It's a marketing thing. Quite frankly, right now I don't know why I'm going. Um, but I also think that there'll be one or two people who I will meet, which will give a little spark.
Yeah.
There will be something, and I think that that is absolutely one of the joys of growing your own creative business, personal business, online business, is that you kind of get to choose who you hook up with. And I think people who are doing it are usually, a bit crazy, a bit maverick. And sometimes when I'm in positions where people aren't doing that, I think, flipping hell, sometimes people have a really boring everyday life. Thank God I don't have to talk to them all the time.
But I also think it's really refreshing to speak to people who are creative, but creative in a different way. So
Yeah,
it's not just artists and makers, it's people who do website design or do
yep,
content or whatever it is, but they
yep,
are just doing something creative in a different way.
yeah, yeah.
You will have fun. I know a couple of people who are likely to be there. So
Okay.
Rachel Emma Waring is one of them.
Oh, yes, she's cool.
She's very
Yeah.
good. And her husband tidies up my podcast, well, edits my podcast, I should say.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Alice, very, very final question. The title is of the podcast is An Art to It. Do you think there is an art to running a successful creative business?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier about awareness and making decisions. I think the art is in understanding your relationship to it, like understanding how you work best, knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes, knowing when to get help on board. Um, so I think the art is recognizing the longevity of it, having that tenacity to kind of keep going and trying new things. But I also think recognizing that with anything that lasts a long time, it goes in waves, it goes in seasonal waves where you might have busy times and slow times, and learning to hold all of those and just respond to what feels a bit off or what feels right. And more and more, just knowing when to be a bit gentler with yourself and knowing when you can push. And I think if we all learnt that, I did an amazing training in regulating your nervous, well, working within a regulated nervous system. And one of the things that came out of it was like, we're designed to move through these states all of the time. And I think we're challenged when we run a business and we're challenged in our art practice. But when you can recognize and you know what you need, that helps you stay for the long term. And I think that's a really important life skill that comes from both of these things, actually. So, yeah, when I say tenacity, it's not push, push, push all the time, for
Beautifully
sure.
put. Beautifully
Thank
put.
you.
Well, what can I say? It's been a joy, Alice Sheridan, podcast royalty. Thank you so much for joining me.
And can I just say, in case you never get this on video, your gorgeous coral jumper against the background of the wall that the paintings are on, that's a combo made in heaven.
Well, why, thank you. And matching mug.
Very nice. Very nice. Lovely. Well, it's been an absolute delight to talk to you. I've really enjoyed listening to some of the other podcasts in kind of preparation. Check your vibe.
Check my vibe. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Bye bye.